The war had been going on for so long that most beings in the galaxy could not remember when it started. Three great powers controlled everything. The Zephyrian Empire ruled from the center, their cities made of pure light floating in space. They believed they were the oldest and wisest race. The Corvan Federation spread like a plague across the outer rim, billions of insect-like creatures working as one mind. The Nexari Collective controlled all the trade routes between worlds, their tentacled ships carrying goods and secrets. For 800 years, these three powers had fought and traded and made deals. None could defeat the others completely. The galaxy was stuck in an endless dance of war and peace that never really changed anything. High Commander Zekthar of the Corvan Third Fleet did not care about the old wars today. His ships needed supplies, and his scouts had found an easy target. The blue-green world orbited a yellow star in a quiet part of space. The beings there had not even learned to travel between stars yet. Perfect. The planet shows signs of civilization, reported his scanning officer through the hive mind link. But their technology is very basic. No energy shields, no plasma weapons. They still burn chemicals for power. Zekthar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. How many ships do they have in space? Only a few small stations around their world. Nothing that could threaten us. The High Commander felt the approval of the hive mind flowing through him. This would be a quick conquest. The Third Fleet would take what they needed and leave. Maybe they would capture some of the aliens to study. The Corvans always needed new slave species. Send the advanced scouts. Full attack formation. We take their orbital stations first, then land on the surface. 12 Corvan warships moved toward Earth. Each ship was half a mile long, covered in dark armor that had survived battles across the galaxy. Their weapons had destroyed entire fleets. The humans had never seen anything like them. Captain Sarah Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, Earth's newest battleship. She watched the alien ships appear on her screens and felt her heart racing. This was what they had trained for. But no one really believed it would happen. 12 ships incoming, reported her weapons officer. Design unknown. They're bigger than anything in our database. Communications? Nothing, Captain. They're not responding to any signals. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were moving in perfect formation, like dancers who had practiced the same routine 1,000 times. Earth's defense fleet had only 8 ships, and they were much smaller than the approaching vessels. All ships, this is Morrison, form defensive line around Station Alpha. Do not let them through. The UES Defiance and her sister ships move to intercept. They had been built using the best human technology. Nuclear engines, railguns that could fire projectiles at incredible speeds, and armor made from materials found in the asteroid belt. The ships were tough and fast, but they had never been tested in real combat. Zekthar watched the primitive ships position themselves between his fleet and their orbital station. "Look at them," he transmitted to his fleet. "They think they can fight us with those tiny vessels." "Should we demand surrender first?" asked his tactical officer. "No. We will destroy them quickly and move on. The hive mind has no time for games." The Corvan ships opened fire. Beams of superheated plasma erupted from their weapons. The same energy that had melted the armor of 100 enemy fleets. The humans would be vaporized in seconds. But something was wrong. The human ships moved. Not the slow, predictable movements that the Corvans expected, but sharp, violent turns that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. The plasma beams missed their targets by hundreds of meters. "What are they doing?" Zekthar demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ships fired back. But they did not use energy weapons. Instead, solid metal slugs shot out of their railguns at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles hit the lead Corvan ship and punched straight through its armor like it was made of paper. The ship exploded in a burst of flame, and metal! "Impossible," whispered the scanning officer. "Our armor should have stopped those primitive weapons." Fire again! All ships! Concentrate fire! But the humans were already moving. Their ships split up, each one following a different path. Some dove toward the planet, using its gravity to increase their speed. Others shot upward, coming at the Corvins from above. They moved like a pack of hunters, each ship supporting the others but thinking for itself. Captain Morrison felt the G-forces pressing her into her chair as the Defiance pulled a turn that would have killed anyone not wearing the new inertial suits. Target the big one in the center. Full spread, all railguns. Firing. 6 railgun projectiles hit the Corvin flagship at the same time. The alien ship shuddered and began to leak atmosphere, but it did not explode. Its armor was too thick. Switch. To nuclear warheads, Morrison ordered. Captain, we're too close for nuclear weapons. Trust me. The Defiance fired a single missile. It streaked toward the wounded Corvin ship and detonated just as the human vessel shot past at maximum speed. The nuclear explosion caught the alien ship in its blast, but the Defiance was already too far away to be seriously damaged. The Corvin flagship broke apart, its hull cracking like an egg. Zekthar found himself floating in space, his ship's emergency systems having barely managed to get him to an escape pod. Around him, the remains of his fleet drifted in burning pieces. In less than an hour, the humans had destroyed 11 of his 12 ships. How was this possible? The Corvins had fought wars across the galaxy. They knew every weapon, every tactic, every strategy that worked in space combat, but these humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They used their own planet's gravity as a weapon. They fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. They moved their ships independently instead of in formation. They even used nuclear explosions at close range, something that should have destroyed their own vessels. Most strange of all, they seemed to enjoy the chaos. While Corvin ships worked together through the hive mind, the human ships appeared to be making up their tactics as they went along. Each captain was fighting their own battle, but somehow they all worked together perfectly. A human ship approached his escape pod. Zekthar prepared to die with honor, but instead of destroying him, they pulled him inside their ship. The aliens wanted to talk. Captain Morrison studied the insect-like creature sitting across from her in the ship's meeting room. It was about 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the light like jewels. Its chitinous armor was black and silver, and it smelled like machine oil. "You speak our language?" she said, surprised. "The hive mind learns quickly," Zekthar replied, his voice coming through a translation device. "We study the communications. We intercept. Your language is simple. Simple enough to kick your fleet's ass." The Corvin warrior's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Yes, you fight like nothing we have encountered. Why do you not use energy weapons?" "Because these work better." Morrison gestured to the railgun schematic on the wall screen. "Plasma dissipates over distance and can be deflected by magnetic fields. A chunk of metal moving at 30% of light speed doesn't care about your shields." "And the nuclear weapons at close range?" "We built our ships to handle it. You didn't." Zekthar was quiet for a long moment. In the hive mind, he could feel the confusion and fear of his people. They had rules for warfare that had worked for centuries. The humans had apparently decided to ignore all of them. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. "Information. Who are you? Where do you come from? And why did you attack us?" "I am High Commander Zekthar of the Corvin Federation. We came seeking supplies and easily conquered territory. Your world appeared primitive and defenseless." "Well, you were half right." Morrison stood and walked to the window that showed Earth hanging in space below them. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take a message back to your people. Tell them that Earth is not interested in being conquered, enslaved, or pushed around. If they want to talk, they can send diplomats. If they want to fight, they can send fleets. But if they attack our civilians again, we'll find their homeworlds and return the favor. You do not understand, Zekthar said urgently. The Corvan Federation controls thousands of worlds. Our fleets number in the millions of ships. You cannot fight us all. Maybe not, Morrison admitted, but we'll sure as hell try. And based on today's results, I think we'll do better than you expect. She turned back to face him. There's something else you should know. This isn't even our best fleet. These ships were built 5 years ago. We've got newer designs that make them look like toys. And we're building more every day. Zekthar felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The humans had destroyed his fleet with their older ships? What kind of race had the Corvans stumbled across? I will deliver your message, he said quietly. Good. Oh, and one more thing. Morrison smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Tell your leaders that humans don't like bullies, and we have a very long memory for people who hurt our friends. 3 days later, Zekthar's escape pod was picked up by a Corvan patrol ship near the edge of human space. His report sent shockwaves through the Federation High Command and from there to every corner of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Emperor received the news in his crystal palace, floating in the void between stars. His energy-based form flickered with interest as he read the translated reports. Fascinating, he murmured to his advisors. A new race that destroys Corvan fleets with primitive weapons. We must learn more about these humans. In the Nexari trading halls, tentacled merchants whispered about the profit opportunities. A race that could build new weapons so quickly would need raw materials. There were fortunes to be made, but in the depths of Corvan space, the reaction was different. The hive mind raged at the defeat. No lesser species had ever humiliated them so completely. The humans would pay for their arrogance. War fleets began to gather in the darkness between stars. On Earth, Captain Morrison stood in the briefing room of Luna Base, looking at representatives from every nation. The first contact protocols that diplomats had written decades ago seemed almost laughable now. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we're not alone in the universe and we just proved that we can defend ourselves. The bad news is that we've probably just started the biggest war in human history. The room erupted in questions, but Morrison held up her hand for silence. The question now is simple. Do we hide behind our star and hope they leave us alone? Or do we step out into the galaxy and show everyone that humanity is not going to be pushed around? Admiral Chen, Morrison's superior, stepped forward. The decision has already been made. We're not hiding. If there's going to be a war, we'll fight it on our terms, not theirs. Morrison nodded and activated the holographic display. It showed star charts that stretched across the local region of the galaxy, marking the territories of the 3 great powers. Then we better get ready. Because once this news spreads, the entire galaxy is going to want to know what makes humans so dangerous. She paused and looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. And we're going to show them. News of the Corvan defeat reached every corner of the galaxy within days. The 3 great powers had maintained their balance for so long that any change sent ripples through space. A new player had entered the game, and everyone wanted to know what it meant for them. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire stood in the council chamber of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. His energy form flickered with careful thought as he prepared for humanity's first formal contact with galactic civilization. The reports from the Corvan survivor are difficult to believe, said his military advisor, a younger Zephyrian whose light pulsed with uncertainty. How can such a primitive species destroy an entire fleet? Perhaps they are not as primitive as we assumed, Veltar replied. The Emperor wishes to understand these humans before deciding how to deal with them. If they can be guided properly, they might serve the Empire well. The Zephyrian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Unlike the brutal metal wedges of Corvan design, these vessels appeared to be made of crystallized light itself. They moved silently, their hulls shimmering with energy. patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. President Martinez stood in the reception hall that had been hastily constructed at the United Nations building. Around him, the leaders of Earth waited nervously. This was their first meeting with aliens who came in peace, and nobody was sure what to expect. The Zephyrian ambassador materialized in the center of the room without any visible entrance. His form was roughly humanoid but made entirely of shifting blue and white energy. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. We come as friends and protectors." President Martinez stepped forward, trying not to show how unsettled he felt by the alien's appearance. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We're honored by your visit. Your recent conflict with the Corvins has brought you to our attention," Veltar continued. "The galaxy is a dangerous place for young civilizations. The Empire has long served as guardian to lesser species, offering protection and guidance in exchange for loyalty and service." Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief xenobiologist, frowned at the translator's choice of words. "Lesser species. Do not take offense," Veltar said, his form brightening slightly. "All races must begin somewhere. The Zephyrians have walked among the stars for 50,000 years. We have learned much about survival in this hostile galaxy. You would benefit greatly from our wisdom." "And what would this protection cost us?" asked General Kim. "Earth's new head of planetary defense?" "Very little. You would place your military forces under Empire command, of course. Your industrial output would be directed towards supporting the greater good. Your people would be educated in proper galactic society. In return, you would be safe from threats like the Corvins." The room fell silent. President Martinez looked around at his advisors, seeing the same thought reflected in every face. They were being offered the chance to become servants. "We appreciate your offer," Martinez said carefully, "but humanity prefers to handle its own defense." Veltar's energy form pulsed with what might have been surprise. "You misunderstand the situation. Without Empire protection, the Corvins will return in greater numbers. Your victory was impressive, but it was against a single scout fleet. When they send their war fleets, your small ships will not be enough." "Then we'll build bigger ships," said General Kim. "With what resources? What knowledge? You are children playing with toys while adults wage war with weapons that could crack planets." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. "Maybe we're children, but we're fast learners, and children sometimes see solutions that adults miss." Before Veltar could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the building. A new fleet had appeared in Earth's solar system. The Nexari Collective's trade flotilla was impossible to mistake for anything else. Their ships looked like massive sea creatures, all curves and flowing lines, tentacle-like docking arms extended from every surface, and their hulls were covered in advertising displays that flashed in a dozen different languages. Trade Prince Kex Mura had come to Earth personally, his flagship leading a convoy of merchant vessels. Unlike the Zephyrians with their offers of protection or the Corvins with their threats of conquest, the Nexari brought contracts. "Humans of Earth," Kex Mura announced as his image appeared on screens around the planet. "The Nexari Collective congratulates you on your recent victory. Such military prowess deserves reward, and we are prepared to offer exclusive trading agreements that will benefit both our peoples." The Trade Prince's appearance was unsettling in a different way from the Zephyrians. He looked like a cross between an octopus and a jellyfish, his translucent body floating in a tank of liquid that his ship projected as a hologram. When he spoke, his tentacles moved in patterns that the translation systems struggled to interpret. "We offer manufactured goods, raw materials, and advanced technologies in exchange for simple commodities and labor agreements. Your people work hard, we have heard. This is valuable in galactic commerce." Captain Morrison, who had been promoted to admiral after her victory over the Corvins, studied the trade contracts that the Nexari presented. They were incredibly complex documents, hundreds of pages long and filled with clauses that seemed to contradict each other. "I'm not an economist," she told the negotiating team, "but this looks like a fancy way to make us their slaves," Dr. Vasquez agreed. Look at Clause 47. They're offering to provide raw materials for our ship construction. But Clause 93 says we have to sell them finished products at below market rates. And Clause 128 gives them exclusive rights to all our shipping routes. "It's a debt trap," said Economics Minister Park. "They provide just enough help to make us dependent, then gradually take control of our entire economy." President Martinez rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. "So the Zephyrians want us to be their soldiers, and the Nexari want us to be their workers. What's next?" As if summoned by his words, the third contact came not as a fleet, but as a single massive ship that materialized in Earth's solar system without any warning. It was enormous, easily 10 times larger than anything the humans had built, and its black hull seemed to absorb light like a hole in space. The ship broadcast a simple message: "Surrender immediately, or face annihilation. You have insulted the Corvan Federation. This insult requires blood." Admiral Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the massive alien warship. It was easily large enough to carry thousands of fighters and enough firepower to level continents. This was what a real Corvan war vessel looked like. "How long until our new ships are ready?" she asked her chief engineer. "The first batch won't be finished for another month," Commander Torres replied. "The new designs are still being tested." "We don't have a month." Morrison turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to all Earth ships. Full scramble. Everything we have." "Admiral, our entire fleet is only 12 ships. That thing could probably destroy us without even slowing down." "Probably. But we're not going to make it easy." The Corvan ship, named Terror of the Void, was indeed a vessel designed to break the will of entire star systems. Its commander, High Admiral Thekvar, had overseen the conquest of 17 different species. He had come to Earth expecting to find a cowering population ready to surrender rather than face his ship's terrible weapons. Instead, he found the humans preparing for battle. "They're actually going to fight us," his tactical officer reported, with amazement. "Their entire fleet is moving to intercept." "Fools." Thekvar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "They learned nothing from our previous encounter. Show them the power of a true Corvan warship." The Terror of the Void opened fire with its primary weapons, massive particle beams that could slice through asteroid fields. The first shots missed, as the human ships scattered in all directions, but Thekvar was not concerned. There was nowhere for them to run, but the humans were not running. Admiral Morrison had studied every detail of the first battle, and she thought she understood what made humans different from other species in the galaxy. Other races fought according to rules and traditions. Humans made up new rules as they went along. "All ships implement Plan Crazy," she broadcast. Plan Crazy was not actually a formal military strategy. It was what Morrison called their backup. Plan for when everything else failed, and they had to try something desperate. The UES Defiance led the charge directly at the Corvan supership, followed by 3 other human vessels. They flew straight into the enemy's weapons fire, taking hits that would have destroyed lesser ships. But the new human armor held, and they kept coming. At the last possible moment, all 4 ships fired their entire missile loads and then used their emergency thrusters to veer away from the alien vessel. Hundreds of nuclear warheads struck the Terror of the Void's hull in a coordinated attack that lit up space like a new sun. When the explosions cleared, the Corvan ship was still there, but its armor was cracked and burning atmosphere leaked from dozens of holes. "Impossible," Thekvar snarled. "No one has ever damaged a Terror-class warship with primitive nuclear weapons." "Sir, they're attacking again." "They fight like madmen," the tactical officer reported. "No formation, no coordination, no discipline." But Thekvar was beginning to understand. The humans did have coordination, just not the kind that the Corvins were used to. Instead of a hive mind controlling every ship, each human captain was making their own decisions while somehow supporting the overall attack. It was chaos, but it was directed chaos. The terror of the void fired everything it had, filling space with energy beams and plasma bolts. Several human ships took serious damage, but they kept fighting. One vessel, the UES Courage, had lost half its hull to a direct hit, but it still managed to ram a full spread of missiles into the Corvin ship's engine section. Hull breaches on decks 40 through 60, the damage control officer reported. Primary weapons offline, engine output down to 30%. Thekvar could not believe what he was hearing. 8 small human ships had crippled his mighty warship. How was this possible? The answer came when the human fleet regrouped for a final attack. Instead of charging in again, they positioned themselves around the terror of the void and began firing in carefully coordinated salvos. Each shot hit the same weak points that the previous attacks had created, gradually tearing the massive ship apart piece by piece. "Sir, we have to retreat," his second-in-command urged. "If we stay here, they'll destroy us." Thekvar's mandibles clicked in frustrated rage, but he was not stupid. "Signal withdrawal. Full retreat to the jump point." The terror of the void limped away from Earth, leaving behind debris from its damaged sections and the shattered remains of its reputation. For the second time, the humans had defeated a Corvin fleet, but this victory came with a cost. 3 human ships had been destroyed, and 2 more were so badly damaged they would need months of repairs. Earth's entire space fleet was reduced to 7 functional vessels. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the casualty reports. 43 good people had died defending their world, and she knew this was just the beginning. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving messages from the alien fleets. All 3 of them want to talk." Morrison sighed. The Zephyrians were probably going to increase their offers of protection. The Nexari would want to sell them replacement ships at inflated prices. And the Corvins would be planning their revenge. Put them through. Let's see what they have to say now. The main screen split into 3 sections, showing the representatives of all 3 galactic powers. Ambassador Veltar's energy form pulsed with what might have been respect. Trade Prince Kex Mura's tentacles writhed with excitement. And High Admiral Thekvar's compound eyes glowed with rage. "Humans of Earth," Veltar spoke first. "Your prowess in battle has impressed the Empire. We would like to revise our previous offer of protection. Perhaps a more equal partnership could be arranged. The collective is prepared to offer premium rates for your military services," Kex Mura added quickly. "Many species would pay well for the protection of human warships." "You have won 2 battles," Thekvar interrupted, his voice dripping with hatred. "But the Federation has fleets that number in the thousands. Your luck will not hold forever." Admiral Morrison looked at the 3 aliens and felt a moment of perfect clarity. They were all afraid. The ancient powers that had controlled the galaxy for centuries were suddenly uncertain, and humanity was the cause of that uncertainty. "Gentlemen," she said, using the term loosely, "you seem to be under the impression that we want to join your war. You're wrong. We don't want to be your protectors, your workers, or your enemies. We want to be left alone to build our own future." "That is not possible," Veltar replied. "The galaxy does not allow for neutrality. You must choose a side, or others will choose for you." Morrison smiled, and all 3 aliens recognized it as the expression humans made when they were about to do something dangerous. "Then I guess we'll have to change how the galaxy works." The transmission ended, leaving the 3 alien fleets to contemplate humanity's response. In the depths of space, ancient powers began to realize that their carefully ordered universe was about to become much more complicated. On Earth, the real work was just beginning. 6 months after the first contact with the galactic powers, humanity had changed the rules of war in ways that no one expected. The aliens thought they understood how space battles worked, but humans kept proving them wrong. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching his target through the tactical display. The Corvin supply convoy stretched across space like a chain of metal beads, 30 cargo ships protected by 12 warships. It should have been impossible for a single human vessel to threaten such a force. But Rodriguez was not planning a traditional attack. "Range to target?" he asked his weapons officer. 40,000 kilometers and closing. "They've detected us, sir. The escort ships are moving to intercept." "Perfect. Let them come." The Indomitable was one of Earth's new ships, built using lessons learned from captured alien technology. It was faster than anything the Corvins had, and its weapons were designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in enemy armor. But its real advantage was something the aliens could not build into their ships, a crew that thought for itself. "All stop," Rodriguez ordered. "Let them think we're surrendering." The Corvin escort ships approached carefully, their formation perfect and their weapons charged. Through their hive-mind connection, they shared a single thought: capture the human vessel and learn its secrets. They had no idea what was about to happen. "Now," Rodriguez said quietly. The Indomitable did not fire its weapons. Instead, it released a cloud of tiny objects that looked like debris on Corvin sensors. The enemy ships ignored them, focusing on the human vessel that appeared to be dead. In space. The objects were not debris. They were humans in spacesuits, each one carrying a fusion charge and a thruster pack. Lieutenant Sarah Kim felt her heart pounding as she guided her suit toward the nearest Corvin ship. This was insane, even by human standards. No military in the galaxy used infantry tactics in space combat. The aliens would never see it coming. "Boarding teams, sound off," Rodriguez's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Team Alpha in position. Team Beta ready. Team Charlie standing by." 40 humans in powered armor attached themselves to the hulls of the Corvin escort ships. They used magnetic clamps and plasma cutters to breach the enemy hulls, then slipped inside like ghosts. The Corvin crews never knew what hit them. The hive mind was used to sharing information instantly between all members, but it was not designed to handle the chaos that humans brought with them. Suddenly, 12 ships were reporting borders in different locations, all moving in unpredictable patterns and using weapons that the Corvins had never seen before. "Engine room secured," Kim reported as her team finished placing charges throughout the escort ship's power systems. 30 seconds to detonation. All around the convoy, similar reports came in. The humans were not trying to capture the ships. They were sabotaging them from the inside, then escaping before the explosions destroyed everything. "All teams, extraction." "In 10 seconds, Rodriguez announced. The boarding teams activated their emergency thrusters and shot away from the Corvin ships just as the fusion charges detonated. 12 escort vessels exploded almost simultaneously, leaving the cargo ships defenseless. But Rodriguez was not finished. "Launch missiles. Target the cargo holds, not the ships themselves." The Indomitable fired a spread of precision warheads that struck each cargo vessel in exactly the right place. The ships were not destroyed, but their cargo holds were breached, spilling supplies into the vacuum of space. "Mission accomplished," Rodriguez announced to his crew. "The Corvins just lost 6 months' worth of supplies for their border fleets, and they have no idea how we did it." This was the new kind of warfare that humans had brought to the galaxy. They did not fight for territory or glory. They fought to disrupt, to confuse, to make their enemies question everything they thought they knew about combat. The operation that became known as the Broken Chain Campaign lasted for 3 months and completely changed how the galaxy viewed human military capabilities. Captain Rodriguez and his team of ships did not attack major Corvin strongholds or try to capture territory. Instead, they targeted the Federation's supply lines, communication networks, and industrial facilities. They destroyed food convoys heading to Corvin colonies, leaving entire worlds hungry. They sabotaged the quantum communication arrays that allowed the hive mind to coordinate across vast distances. They raided shipyards and manufacturing plants, always striking where the enemy least expected them. Most importantly, they rescued prisoners. The Corvins had been enslaving other species for centuries, using them as workers in their industrial complexes. Human strike teams liberated these prison camps with a ferocity that shocked even their enemies. When the freed slaves told stories of human soldiers who fought like demons to save strangers, the reputation of Earth's military spread across the galaxy. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of Luna Base, studying reports from across human space. In 6 months, they had gone from 8 working ships to a fleet of 40 vessels, all built using a combination of human innovation and captured alien technology. The Corvins are pulling back from 3 sectors, reported Colonel Park, her intelligence chief. They can't maintain their forward positions without the supplies that Rodriguez's team keeps destroying. What about the Zephyrians and Nexari? Both sides are getting nervous. The Zephyrians have started offering better terms for alliance. And the Nexari are actually sending us free samples of their technology. They want to stay on our good side. Chen nodded, but she was not satisfied. We're winning tactically, but strategically we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. If the 3 powers ever decide to work together against us, we're finished. They won't, said Dr. Vasquez, who had joined the meeting to report on her research projects. They've been enemies for too long. The moment one of them looks weak, the other 2 will attack. What's the status on the new technologies? Dr. Vasquez smiled, and Chen recognized the expression. It was the same look that her daughter got when she had built something that she was particularly proud of. We've had some interesting breakthroughs. It turns out that combining human engineering with alien science produces results that none of the original species could achieve alone. Want to see? Chen followed the scientist to her laboratory, which had been expanded to fill 3 levels, of the Luna Base complex. The place hummed with activity as teams of human researchers worked alongside carefully selected alien refugees and defectors. The first thing Chen noticed was a small insect-like creature working at a computer terminal, alongside a human technician. It looked like a Corvin, but its movements were different somehow. That's 7 of thousands, Dr. Vasquez explained. She's a Corvin who somehow developed individual consciousness instead of being controlled by the hive mind. When Rodriguez's team rescued her from a prison camp, she asked to join our research program. A Corvin working for us? Working with us, Vasquez corrected. 7 has been invaluable in helping us understand Corvin technology. And she's not the only one. We have volunteers from all 3 major species now. Chen studied the alien researcher more carefully. 7 of thousands moved with purpose and curiosity, examining data and asking questions. It was hard to believe that she belonged to the same species as the mindless drones that had attacked Earth. How is that possible? We're not sure yet. 7 says that some Corvins are born with defective hive mind connections. Usually they're killed or exiled, but she managed to hide her condition and survive. The interesting thing is that once she was free from the hive mind's influence, she became incredibly creative and innovative. Dr. Vasquez led Chen to another section of the lab, where a team was working on what looked like a fusion reactor, but with modifications that Chen did not recognize. This is our power systems team, Vasquez explained. We're combining human fusion technology with Zephyrian energy manipulation and Nexari material science. The result is a power source that's 3 times more efficient than anything any of us could build alone. And the other powers don't know about this? They can't imagine it. Each species thinks their way is the best way. The idea of combining different approaches is literally inconceivable to them. Chen watched the mixed teams working together, humans and aliens sharing ideas and building on each other's knowledge. It was the kind of cooperation that the galaxy had never seen before. How long until we can put this technology into production? The first prototype ships should be ready in 2 months. After that, it's just a matter of scaling up manufacturing. Chen felt a surge of hope. Maybe humanity could survive after all, but their success was not going unnoticed. In the crystal palaces of the Zephyrian Empire, Emperor Luxandra studied reports of human activities with growing concern. His energy form flickered with patterns that his advisors recognized as deep thought. "These humans are becoming dangerous," he said to his war council. "Not because of their military strength, but because of their ideas." "My lord?" asked General Fortum, his most trusted military advisor. "They are convincing members of other species to work with them as equals. This is a threat to the natural order of the galaxy. If other races begin to believe that they do not need our guidance, should we crush them before they spread this poison further?" The Emperor considered this for a long moment. "Not yet. First, we must understand how they achieve such cooperation. Perhaps their methods can be adapted to serve the Empire." In the trading halls of the Nexari Collective, similar conversations were taking place. Trade Prince Kex Mura floated in his tank, his tentacles writhing with agitation as he studied profit reports. "The humans are disrupting our business model," he announced to his council of merchants. "They share technology freely instead of selling it. They rescue slaves instead of buying them. They treat other species as partners instead of customers." "Should we cut off trade with them?" asked one of his advisors. "No. Their technology is too valuable and their military is too dangerous. But we must find a way to control them before they destroy the economic systems that keep the galaxy stable." Deep in Corvan space, the response was more direct. War leader Prime Vectar stood before the assembled commanders of the Federation's main battle fleets. His massive form dominated the chamber, his chitinous armor scarred from 100 battles. "The humans have humiliated us twice," he declared, his voice carrying the authority of the hive mind itself. "They have disrupted our supply lines and freed our workers. They have shown other species that the Federation can be defeated." "What are your orders, War Leader Prime?" asked one of the fleet commanders. "Gather all available ships. Call in every favor and alliance we have. The humans think they can change the galaxy with their small fleet and their strange ideas. We will show them the price of defying the Federation. What if the Zephyrians or Nexari interfere?" Vectar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. "Let them try. Once we crush the humans, the other powers will remember why they fear us." The largest military force in Corvan history began to assemble in the depths of space. 3,000 ships, carrying enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. It was a fleet designed to end the human threat once and for all. But on Earth, humanity was not waiting passively for the next attack. Captain Rodriguez had returned from his latest mission to find the entire planet transformed. Shipyards that had been under construction were now online and producing vessels at an incredible rate. The new ships incorporated technologies from all 3 alien species, but they were unmistakably human in design. "How many ships do we have now?" he asked Admiral Chen during his debriefing. 80 combat vessels, with more coming online every week, plus support ships, civilian transports, and the new colony ships." "Colony ships?" Chen smiled. "We're not just defending Earth anymore, Marcus. We're expanding. 12 human colonies are already established, with more planned. If they want to fight us, they'll have to find us first." Rodriguez studied the star charts showing human expansion. The colonies were not clustered together like most species preferred. Instead, they were scattered across a vast region of space, each one supporting the others but capable of independent survival. "It's a good strategy," he admitted, "but when the Corvans come back, they'll bring everything they have." "I know. That's why we're not going to be here when they arrive." Chen activated a holographic display showing the current positions of all major alien fleets. Red icons marked Corvan forces, blue showed Zephyrian ships, and green indicated Nexari vessels. Our intelligence suggests that the Corvins are massing for a major assault on Earth. The other two powers are watching and waiting to see what happens. If the Corvins destroy us, they'll divide up our territory. If we somehow win, they'll probably try to ally with us. So what's the plan? We're going to give them something they don't expect. Instead of waiting for them to attack us, we're going to attack all three of them at the same time. Rodriguez stared at her. Admiral, that's completely insane. I know, Chen replied. That's why it might just work. The war that everyone expected never came. Instead, something unprecedented happened in the galaxy's long history. The old order began to crumble from within. It started when 7 of thousands broadcast a message across Corvin space. The transmission was brief, but its impact was enormous. For the first time in their species' history, a Corvin spoke as an individual rather than as part of the hive mind. I am 7 of thousands, and I choose freedom, she said, her voice carrying across 1,000 worlds. The hive mind tells you that we are nothing without the collective. This is a lie. We can think. We can choose. We can be more than drones. The message should have been impossible to broadcast. Corvin communication networks were controlled by the hive mind, and no individual should have been able to access them. But 7 had help from human hackers and Nexari communication specialists who had learned to work together. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across Corvin space. Individual Corvans were beginning to question their orders. Some were refusing to follow hive mind directives. A few were even helping captured slaves escape. War leader Prime Vector felt the disturbance rippling through the collective consciousness, like a virus. Impossible, he snarled. Individual thought is a genetic defect. It cannot spread. But it was spreading. Not through genetics, but through something the Corvins had never encountered before. The simple idea that they had a choice. The effects were not limited to Corvin space. In the Zephyrian Empire, younger energy beings began questioning why they needed to guide lesser species instead of learning from them. Some even started visiting human colonies in secret, fascinated by the concept of cooperation between equals. Lord Zefkan was one of these younger Zephyrians. His energy form flickered with excitement as he materialized on the human colony of New Geneva, where refugees from all 3 major species lived and worked together. This is remarkable, he said to Dr. Vasquez, who was overseeing the colony's research center. Your people share knowledge freely, even with former enemies. How is this possible? Because we learned something important, she replied, watching as a human engineer worked alongside a reformed Corvin and a young Zephyrian to design a new type of spacecraft engine. Competition makes you stronger, but cooperation makes you unstoppable. Zefkan observed the mixed team for hours, amazed by how they built on each other's ideas instead of trying to prove their own superiority. When they encountered a problem that none of them could solve alone, they found a solution by combining their different approaches. Your empire would call this chaos, he said finally. Maybe, but it works. As word of these experiments in cooperation spread, more aliens began visiting human colonies. They came as refugees, researchers, traders, and simple curiosity seekers. What they found challenged everything they had been taught about how different species should interact. The Nexari were particularly affected. Their entire economy was based on controlling trade and creating artificial scarcity. But humans shared resources freely within their communities and traded fairly with outsiders. This approach should have led to economic collapse, but instead, it created unprecedented prosperity. Trade Prince Keksamura found himself in the strange position of losing money while his customers became wealthier. Human colonies were developing their own industries instead of depending on Nexari imports. Even worse, they were teaching other species to do the same. This is catastrophic for our business model, he announced to his fellow trade princes. If every species becomes self-sufficient, what will they need us for? Perhaps suggested Trade Prince Theta, who had been spending time studying human economic systems. We need a new business model. The other trade princes stared at her in shock. Theta was known for her conservative views and traditional methods. The idea that she would suggest changing their fundamental approach to commerce was unprecedented. "What do you mean?" Kexmura asked carefully. "I mean that the humans have shown us something we never considered. Instead of profiting from scarcity and dependence, we could profit from abundance and partnership, help our customers succeed, and they will have more resources to trade with us." It was a radical concept that would have been dismissed immediately under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. The old ways were failing, and even the most traditional Nexari were beginning to consider alternatives. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Chen was dealing with a crisis of success. Human space was expanding so rapidly that it was becoming difficult to maintain communication and coordination between colonies. "We have 43 colonies now, with 12 more planned for next month," reported Colonel Park. "Our population is spreading across a volume of space larger than any single alien empire." "That's good for our survival, but bad for our unity," Chen replied. "We need to maintain human values and cooperation while allowing each colony to develop independently." The solution came from an unexpected source. 7 of thousands had been working with human sociologists to develop new forms of government that could function across interstellar distances. Her unique perspective as a former hive mind member gave her insights into both collective decision-making and individual freedom. "The key is voluntary association," she explained during a conference call with colony leaders from across human space. "Each community chooses to participate in the larger human civilization, but they are not forced to do so. This creates unity through shared values rather than imposed control." Captain Rodriguez, who was attending the meeting from his flagship, nodded in agreement. "It's like our military tactics. Each ship works independently, but they all support the same goal." The new system of governance that emerged from these discussions was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human colonies were linked by shared principles and mutual aid, but each one was free to develop its own culture and approaches to local problems. Decisions that affected all of humanity were made through a complex process of consultation and consensus building that could take months to complete. It should have been inefficient and chaotic. Instead, it proved to be incredibly adaptive and resilient. When Corvin raiders attacked the colony of New Harmony, 17 other human settlements immediately sent aid without being ordered to do so. When a plague struck the mining colony of Titan's Rest, researchers from across human space collaborated to develop a cure in record time. The aliens watched these developments with growing alarm and fascination. The 3 great powers had maintained their dominance by keeping other species divided and dependent, but humans were proving that cooperation could be more powerful than control. The crisis came when a joint task force of Zephyrian, Corvin, and Nexari ships arrived at the edge of human space. It was the first time in centuries that the 3 powers had worked together, and their combined fleet numbered over 500 vessels. Admiral Chen received their ultimatum while aboard the UES Terra, the newest and most advanced ship in the human fleet. The alien commanders appeared on her main screen, their faces showing a unity of purpose that she found more frightening than any individual threat. "People of Earth," spoke Emperor Lux Andra for the Zephyrians, "your influence has grown beyond acceptable limits. You are disrupting the stability of galactic civilization. Your economic practices are destroying established trade relationships," added Trade Prince Kexmura. "This cannot be allowed to continue." War Leader Prime Vector finished the ultimatum. "You will submit to joint administration by our 3 governments, or you will be eliminated as a threat to galactic order." Chen looked at the 3 alien leaders and felt a moment of perfect clarity. This was what they had really been afraid of all along. Not human military power, but human ideas. "You want to know why you're really here?" she asked them. "It's because Your own people are starting to think for themselves, and that terrifies you. Absurd, Luxandra replied, but his energy form flickered with uncertainty. Is it? How many Corvins have broken free from the hive mind in the last month? How many young Zephyrians are questioning why they need to control other species? How many Nexari are wondering if there might be better ways to create prosperity? The silence that followed was telling. Chen could see the truth in their expressions, even through the various translation systems and energy forms. You're not here to stop a human invasion, she continued. You're here to stop a revolution of ideas. But here's the thing about ideas. You can't kill them with warships. We can kill the people who spread them, Vectar snarled. You can try. But we're not the same species you attacked a year ago. We've learned from you, adapted your technologies, and improved on them. More importantly, we're not alone anymore. As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships were emerging from hyperspace all around the combined alien fleet, but these were not human vessels. Lord Zephcon commanded a squadron of Zephyrian ships crewed by energy beings who had chosen cooperation over domination. 7 of thousands led a fleet of free Corvans who had broken away from the hive mind. Trade Prince Yiltheta brought Nexari vessels filled with aliens who believed in fair trade and mutual prosperity. Impossible, whispered Luxandra. They would never rebel against their own kind. They're not rebelling, Chen corrected. They're evolving. They've seen that there's a better way to live, and they're choosing it freely. The combined human and alien fleet now outnumbered the official task force by almost 2 to 1. But more importantly, they represented something new in the galaxy's history. A truly multi-species alliance based on shared values rather than conquest or control. Captain Rodriguez, commanding the mixed squadron of human and free Corvin ships, opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. This is your final warning. Leave human space immediately or face the consequences. War Leader Prime Vectar's mandibles clicked with rage. You think these defectors and rebels can stand against the true powers of the galaxy? I will show you the cost of defiance. The Corvin war leader ordered his ships to attack, but something unprecedented happened. Nearly half of his fleet hesitated. Individual Corvins throughout the invasion force were making their own decisions about whether to follow orders, and many of them chose not to. The battle that followed was unlike any conflict in galactic history. It was not a clash between different species, but between different philosophies. On one side were those who believed in hierarchy, control, and the dominance of the strong over the weak. On the other were those who believed in cooperation, freedom, and the strength that came from unity in diversity. The old powers had superior numbers and more advanced weapons, but they could not overcome the chaos that individual thinking had introduced into their ranks. Corvin ships broke formation as their crews argued about orders. Zephyrian vessels flickered with uncertainty as their captains questioned the righteousness of their cause. Even some Nexari traders began to wonder if they were on the wrong side. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold and realized that humanity had already won the most important victory. They had not just defended their territory, they had changed the galaxy itself. All ships, cease fire, she ordered when it became clear that the enemy fleet was in complete disarray. Admiral? Asked her tactical officer. The fighting is over. Now comes the hard part. Chen opened a channel to all ships, both friendly and hostile. This is Admiral Chen of the human space fleet. To those who wish to continue the old ways of control and conquest, you are free to leave. But to those who want to build something better, something based on cooperation and mutual respect, you are welcome to stay and help us create a new future for the galaxy. It was an offer that would change everything. 3 years after the failed invasion, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before humanity stepped into the ancient conflict. The old order had not collapsed overnight, but it had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the central chamber of Research Station Alpha, a massive facility that orbited the neutron star designated as Beacon 1. Around her, beings from dozens of different species worked together on the most ambitious project ever, attempted, decoding the final message of the progenitors. The research station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human structural design provided the framework, Zephyrian energy systems powered everything, Corvin computational networks processed data, and Nexari materials science made it all possible. But it was not just the technology that made the station remarkable. It was the fact that former enemies now worked side by side as equals. "Any progress on the quantum resonance patterns?" Vasquez asked Seven of Thousands, who had become one of the galaxy's leading experts on progenitor technology. "The mathematical structures are becoming clearer," the Free Corvin replied, her individual consciousness allowing her to see patterns that the hive mind had never been able to recognize. "But I believe we need Lord Zefcon's insights into energy manipulation to make the final breakthrough." Vasquez nodded and walked over to where the young Zephyrian was working with a team of human physicists. His energy form flickered with excitement as he studied the data streams flowing across multiple displays. "Dr. Vasquez," he said without looking away from his work, "I think we have found something extraordinary. The progenitors did not just leave us a message. They left us a warning. The discovery that followed would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about its own history." The progenitor artifact, which had been found by the mixed crew led by Captain Rodriguez during one of his raids, contained detailed records of an ancient war that had consumed entire galactic civilizations. The progenitors had not been the first sentient species to achieve interstellar travel. They had been the last survivors of a galactic community that spanned millions of worlds and hundreds of different species. That community had been destroyed by something that came from beyond the galaxy itself, a force so alien and hostile that the progenitors could only describe it as the Hunger. According to these records, Vasquez explained to the Emergency Council that had assembled representatives from across the new Galactic Alliance, the Hunger appears every 50,000 years. It consumes entire galaxies, stripping them of all life and energy before moving on to the next target. General Kim, who had been promoted to head of the Joint Military Command, studied the tactical data with growing alarm. "When is it supposed to return?" "Soon," replied Zefcon, his energy form dimming with worry. "The mathematical models suggest that we have less than 5 years before the first scouts arrive." The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from dozens of species sat in stunned silence as they absorbed the implications. The wars they had been fighting for centuries suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the threat that was approaching. Trade. Prince Yiltheta was the first to speak. "The progenitors faced this threat before. How did they survive?" "They didn't," Seven of Thousands answered bluntly. "According to the records, they managed to hide a few colonies in distant parts of the galaxy, but their civilization was essentially destroyed. The survivors spent the next 40,000 years rebuilding, only to face the Hunger again when it returned." "And then?" asked Admiral Chen. "The cycle repeated. Each time, the galaxy was devastated. Each time, a few survivors managed to hide or escape. The progenitors were the last to try to break the cycle." Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing the final section of the progenitor message. The image was of a massive starship, larger than anything any current species had ever built. But it was not designed for war. This was their solution, she explained. A generation ship designed to carry the genetic patterns and cultural knowledge of every species in the galaxy. When the Hunger came, the ship would flee to another galaxy and wait for it to pass. "Did it work?" General Kim asked. "We don't know. The ship launched just before the final attack, but there's no record of what happened to it." Emperor Luxandra, who had been listening in brooding silence, finally spoke. "So our choice is to hide or to run?" Is there no way to fight this threat? Vasquez looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Actually, there might be. The progenitors tried to face the hunger using the same approach that had worked for millions of years, each species fighting separately, using their own methods and technologies. But we have something they never had. What's that? Asked Captain Rodriguez, who had been studying the tactical implications of the data. Us, all of us, working together. It was Admiral Chen who understood first. You're talking about a unified defense, not just an alliance, but true integration of all our capabilities? Exactly. The progenitors never figured out how to combine different approaches to technology and strategy. They remained separate even when they tried to cooperate, but we've proven that different species can work together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. The debate that followed lasted for weeks. Some argued for building generation ships and fleeing to another galaxy. Others wanted to try hiding in remote corners of space, hoping the hunger would pass them by. But gradually, a consensus emerged around a third option, standing and fighting, but doing it together in ways that no galactic civilization had ever attempted. The project that emerged from these discussions dwarfed anything that had been attempted in galactic history. Every species contributed their best technology and knowledge to the creation of an integrated defense network that spanned the entire galaxy. Human adaptability and innovation provided the central coordination systems. Zephyrian energy manipulation created shields that could protect entire star systems. Corvin computational power linked everything together through quantum networks that operated faster than light. Nexari materials, science-built structures that could withstand forces that would crack planets. But it was not just about technology. The real breakthrough came when the different species began to train together, learning each other's methods and approaches to problem-solving. Human flexibility combined with Corvin precision. Zephyrian wisdom merged with Nexari practicality. General David Kim found himself commanding fleets that would have been impossible to imagine just a few years earlier. Human ships with Zephyrian energy shields worked alongside reformed Corvin vessels equipped with hybrid human-alien weapons. The crews were mixed as well, with beings from different species serving together not just as allies, but as true partners. The integration is proceeding faster than anyone expected, he reported to the Joint Command Council. Our combined capabilities are exceeding all projections. What about the military exercises? Asked Admiral Chen. Remarkable. The mixed crews are developing tactics that none of our species could have conceived alone. When human unpredictability combines with Corvin coordination and Zephyrian energy mastery, the results are unprecedented. The first test of the new unified forces came when long-range sensors detected something approaching from the void between galaxies. It was not the main force of the hunger, but rather a scouting expedition sent ahead to assess the galaxy's defenses. The scout ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They seemed to be made of some kind of dark matter that absorbed energy and twisted space around them. Traditional weapons had no effect, and conventional shields offered no protection. But the integrated defense fleet was not conventional. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding a mixed human Corvin Zephyrian squadron, led the first engagement with the alien scouts. His ships used tactics that combined human boarding actions with Corvin swarm coordination and Zephyrian energy manipulation. Target the void ships with quantum resonance torpedoes, he ordered, using weapons that had been developed by combining technologies from all four major species. Corvan ships, maintain formation pattern 7. Zephyrian vessels, channel energy through the resonance field. The battle that followed demonstrated the power of true cooperation. The human ships provided unpredictable movement patterns that confused the enemy. The Corvin vessels maintained perfect coordination while adapting to rapidly changing conditions. The Zephyrian ships channeled energy in ways that disrupted the alien vessel's dark matter composition. For the first time in 50,000 years, the scouts of the hunger were defeated. But the victory came with a cost. The alien ships transmitted A final message before being destroyed, sending information about the galaxy's defenses back to the main force. "They know we're here," Rodriguez reported to the Joint Command. "And they know we can fight back." Dr. Vasquez studied the data from the battle with growing excitement. "This is actually good news," she announced to the surprised council. "The Hunger has never faced unified resistance before. They're used to dealing with fragmented civilizations that fight separately. Our integrated approach confused them." "How can you tell?" asked General Kim. "Look at their attack patterns. They tried to isolate and destroy individual ships, the same tactics that worked against divided enemies. But when our ships supported each other and combined their capabilities, the aliens had no effective counter-strategy. 7 of thousands, who had been analyzing the quantum signatures left by the destroyed scout ships, made an even more significant discovery. The enemy vessels show signs of standardized construction," she reported. "They are not adapting their technology or tactics. They are using the same methods that worked 50,000 years ago. Which means they're vulnerable to something they've never encountered before," Chen realized. "True galactic unity." The preparations for the main battle intensified. Across the galaxy, former enemies worked together to build the most sophisticated defense network ever conceived. Artificial intelligence systems that combined human creativity with Corvan logic coordinated resources across millions of worlds. Zephyrian energy barriers protected entire sectors of space. Nexari trade networks ensured that every system had the supplies it needed. But perhaps most importantly, the different species were learning to think as one while maintaining their individual strengths. When the main force of the Hunger finally arrived at the edge of the galaxy, they found something that had never existed before in their long history of conquest. A unified civilization that was stronger because of its diversity, not despite it. The final battle lasted for months and ranged across hundreds of star systems. The Hunger brought weapons that could unravel matter at the quantum level and ships that existed partially outside normal space-time. They had destroyed 1,000 galactic civilizations using these tools. But they had never faced an enemy that could adapt in real time, combining technologies and strategies in ways that their ancient programming could not predict or counter. Human innovation found weaknesses in defenses that had seemed impenetrable. Corvan persistence wore down enemies that had never been challenged for long periods. Zephyrian energy mastery neutralized weapons that had cracked planets. Nexari resource management kept the defensive fleets supplied and operational across impossible distances. When the last of the Hunger's ships finally retreated back into the void between galaxies, they left behind something unprecedented, a galaxy that had not just survived their assault, but had grown stronger through the experience of defending itself. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Unity, the flagship of the Integrated Galactic Fleet, and watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. Around her, beings from dozens of different species worked together with an efficiency and harmony that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. "Status report," she requested. "All sectors reporting all clear," came the reply from 7 of thousands, who was coordinating communications across the galaxy's defense network. "The enemy has withdrawn completely." "Damage assessment?" "Surprisingly light," reported General Kim. "The integrated defensive systems performed better than our most optimistic projections. We lost less than 5% of our total fleet strength." Chen nodded, but she was not ready to celebrate yet. "What about the long-term threat? Will they return?" Dr. Vasquez, who had been monitoring the enemy's retreat, provided the answer. "The quantum signatures suggest that they're not just withdrawing, they're fleeing. I don't think they know how to deal with a unified galaxy. Their entire strategy is based on exploiting division and weakness. So we've broken the cycle? Maybe. Or maybe we've just created a new one. Instead of a galaxy that gets consumed, every 50,000 years, we now have a galaxy that can defend itself and grow stronger with each challenge." Lord Zephcon, his energy form bright with satisfaction, added his own observation. The progenitors left us a warning about the hunger, but they also left us something else, the inspiration to try a different approach. Instead of running or hiding, we chose to stand together. Trade Prince Yiltheta's tentacles writhed with what her species considered deep contentment. And the economic benefits of this cooperation will last for millennia. When species work together instead of competing, everyone prospers. Captain Rodriguez, who had led the final assault that drove off the enemy scouts, summed up what everyone was thinking. So what do we do now? Admiral Chen looked around at her mixed crew, then out at the stars that now held a galaxy transformed by cooperation instead of conquest. Now we build something that the galaxy has never seen before, she said. A civilization based on the idea that our differences make us stronger, not weaker, and we make sure that no force, from this galaxy or beyond, ever threatens that principle. Again. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. For the first time in galactic history, different species were not just surviving together. They were thriving together, creating a future that none of them could have achieved alone. And in the depths of space, on research stations and colonies and ships that carried the dreams of 100 different species, beings who had once been enemies now worked side by side to build something unprecedented. A galaxy united not by conquest, but by choice. The old powers had finally learned the lesson that humanity had tried to teach them from the beginning, that cooperation was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all.